Sometimes the biggest secrets aren't buried in some locked vault. They're just hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to poke around. And that's exactly what we're talking about today. A fascinating story of digital sleuthing that accidentally uncovered a massive secret project from the AI company Anthropic. Right, so let's get into it. This is where the whole thing kicks off. Not with some crazy sophisticated hack, but with a developer just messing around in Anthropic's coding tool, Claude Code, using one of the most basic Linux commands out there. They had no clue they were about to pull on a tiny thread that would unravel a huge corporate strategy. So, where does a story like this even begin? Well, it starts with a really simple question. When you're using one of these coding tools inside your web browser, what's actually going on under the hood? And the first clue popped up right away. Turns out, Claude Code runs inside something called a Firecracker micro VM. Now, if that sounds familiar, it should. It's the same super lightweight tech that powers huge services like AWS Lambda. It's pretty standard stuff for creating these safe, isolated coding sandboxes. Clever, for sure, but that's not the big secret. Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting, how they make it so incredibly fast. See, your session isn't booting up from scratch every single time. Nah, that's too slow. Instead, it's restored from a ready-made snapshot. You can see here how different parts, like your file system, are basically hot-swapped into the live environment. It's like pulling out a drawer and sliding a new one in, letting you get to work almost instantly. It's a really efficient design. But even this clever architecture wasn't the real story. The key piece of evidence, the one little mistake that blew this whole thing wide open, was just sitting there, right in the file system. This one file, a 27 megabyte Go binary. It's the little engine that runs the whole show, the main controller for the entire environment. And inside this one file was a developer's dream come true. This right here is the crucial mistake. See, normally when developers ship software, they strip it. They remove all the internal notes, all the function names, the debug info, basically everything that would make it easy to reverse engineer. Well, Anthropic, they didn't. They shipped it with the full blueprint inside. It's like leaving the keys in the front door with the architectural plans sitting right on the coffee table. And because of that one mistake, the whole analysis became, well, way simpler than you'd think. It didn't require any complex hacking. The investigator could just use standard Linux tools to figure out how the system worked, pull out all the software ingredients, and literally read the names of every single internal component. So, as they started sifting through all those internal names, they found something that just wasn't supposed to be there. Something completely unknown. Inside the code that handles deploying applications, they saw what you'd expect. A client for Vercel, which is a super popular platform for hosting web apps. Makes sense. But sitting right next to it was something else. Something nobody had ever heard of, an Antspace client. What on earth is Antspace? And here's the kicker. Antspace isn't just, a different name for their Vercel setup. By digging into the code, the investigator found it has a completely different, totally custom-built protocol. You can see on this slide it handles things like file uploads and build updates in its own unique way. This wasn't some small internal tool. This was a major strategic investment. And get this, the number of times Antspace was mentioned anywhere on the public internet before this discovery, the number of Google search results, 0. A big fat 0. Nothing on their blog, no job postings, no docs. It was a complete ghost. A platform built entirely in secret. So finding a secret, custom-built hosting platform, that obviously leads to a much bigger question. Why? Why build it? Is this just some internal tool, or is it part of a much grander plan? Well, it turns out Antspace is the final piece of another internal project, this one codenamed Baku. And Baku is the whole experience you have when you ask Claude to build a web app for you. It's the system that's actually writing the code and setting up your project. And Baku isn't just some simple script. No way. This thing is incredibly sophisticated. It can automatically spin up a database for your project. It has these things called stop hooks to keep you from deploying buggy code, and it even uses Git for version control behind the scenes. This is a full-on development environment. And here it is, the big connection, the thing that ties it all together. When the Baku system helps you build an application, its default destination, its native home, isn't Vercel. It's Anthropic's own secret platform, Antspace. So what does this all mean? Why build an AI model and an app builder and a hosting platform all in secret? This is where we see the strategic endgame. This is the master plan. What this discovery reveals is that Anthropic is building a completely vertically integrated stack for AI development. Think about it. They want to own the entire journey, from you just describing an idea to their AI, Claude, to their builder, Baku, writing all the code, all the way to their own platform, Antspace, hosting the final app. By controlling every single step, they can create this seamless, powerful experience that's going to be really, really hard for anyone else to compete with. And make no mistake, this is a huge move. They're not just playing in the AI sandbox anymore. This puts them in direct competition with a whole range of established companies. They're quietly taking on hosting giants like Vercel, AI code generators like Replit, and even back-end providers like Supabase. They are building a world where they own the user, the workflow, and the entire infrastructure from start to finish. So the big takeaway here is that Anthropic's ambition is just so much bigger than building a great chatbot. They are positioning themselves to be the all-in-one factory for the next generation of software, a future where you don't really code an application, you just speak it into existence. So this accidental discovery, which all started from one unstripped binary file, gives us this fascinating and frankly kind of mind-blowing glimpse into that future. And it leaves us with a huge question about what it even means to be a developer when the entire process, from idea to deployment, is handled by a single AI platform. Thanks for tuning in to this explainer.